It's week 9, and the trade deadline is approaching. But if you don't have the trade assets, this is where you can get them, or you can just improve your team here. Week 9 waivers, let's get into it. Let's start off with the quarterback that's been a top 6 guy the last 2 to 3 weeks in Trevor Lawrence. Now, again, things have not been pretty there in Jacksonville this year, but for fantasy, well, Trevor Lawrence has been pretty good, again, the last few weeks. 250 yards a game, 2 touchdowns a game, whether if it's on the air or on the ground. So he's doing everything he can to keep this team afloat. Now, if you need a quarterback, I would say Trevor Lawrence should be the number one option, despite Christian Kirk now being down for the year. Now, if you need a different quarterback, if you don't trust this offense, I have one for you here in just a moment. But just be wary. If you go and pick up a guy like Lawrence, who's been killing it as far as fantasy, he does play Philly next week. On paper, it's not a great matchup. At the receiver position, I'm going to talk about 2 guys really simultaneously in Elijah Moore and Cedric Tillman. Now, Elijah Moore last week, 8 receptions, 12 targets, and 85 total yards. He has a new offensive coordinator in Ken Dorsey, and that's huge here for the Cleveland Brown offense. And, of course, the big positive is Jameis Winston. He likes to air the ball out, and he's going to get it there, I guess, accurately, which is something we haven't had here in about a year since Joe Flacco left town. But Elijah Moore and Cedric Tillman, who Tillman, over the last 2 weeks, has been even more crazy. 15 receptions, 21 targets, 180 yards, and 2 total touchdowns, and they both came in last week's game. Now, again, both these guys have a lot of the same similarities. The reason I would say go after Elijah Moore, I guess Moore over Cedric Tillman, no pun intended, he's just safe. But let's look at some other options here and some guys that we've covered in previous videos. Of course, Lawrence, Moore, and Tillman are on this list. But Keon Coleman, we've talked about last week in Yahoo leagues, he's still on your waivers, so I'm guaranteeing it. ESPN, well, it's almost about double the percentage. But in Yahoo, 32%. Get Keon Coleman on your rosters. 1 week it might be Shakir, 1 week it might be Keon, and 1 week it might be Cooper. You just need to strike right. Bo Nix, though, at the quarterback position, if you don't like Trevor Lawrence, Bo Nix is going to be your guy. This is a guy that's been consistent. And last week, 3 touchdowns in the first half. I understand it's Carolina, but still, that production is there. Now, Bo Nix has a tough schedule coming up, so that's why these quarterbacks on the market are a little bit scary as far as their matchups coming up. So it all depends on who you trust more. At the tight end position, we covered all 3 of these guys in multiple weeks throughout this entire offseason. Hunter Henry, Zach Ertz, Noah Fant, all 3 guys deserve a spot on your roster, but you need to pick which one do I really like the most. Regardless, all 3 of these guys I think can be on your roster and start for you if you need a starter on any given week. At the kicker position, Austin Seibert and Will Reichard. These guys have flip-flopped their percentages, and let me explain. Austin Seibert is available in the majority of Yahoo leagues. ESPN, he's not on your waivers. I'll just be honest, right? He's owned in like 83% of leagues. Yahoo, it's less than 50. For ESPN leagues, it's the same story, but flipped for Will Reichard, the kicker for the Minnesota Vikings. So depending on your platform, go after those guys. 2 high-powered offenses that gives us plenty of opportunities for these kickers to produce. The defense, I will say, is Washington. Look, they play the Giants this upcoming week in week number 9, and this is just a defense that gets a lot of sacks, produces a lot of turnovers, and you're playing Daniel Jones. But that's going to do it here for today's video. If you enjoyed, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on those post notifications. We do this every single week, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.